To recap, I promise to strive to ensure that governance is always adhered to in the ILO, while acknowledging that the ILO has to focus on the thought leadership and driving the world of work. It cannot do so without being aligned to gender issues, trade issues, race issues, developmental issues, business, human rights and responsible business issues, and all issues that are in the multilateral environment. I promise to have an ILO that works and cares. As a serial entrepreneur, my development within business has taken quite a number of stages, from having been trained as a commercial lawyer who ventured into intellectual property, ventured into entertainment law, acting for musicians and sports people, running the music industry at such stage, a record company and the industry as a whole, and then developing into turning around a technology company that my partners and I built in 27 countries as a world-class beating training solutions provider, partnered with some of the biggest multinationals like Cisco and Microsoft and many others. Spent time in the advertising space as the chair of one of the big players in that space, and then moving on as well to be in the property space, the commercial property space. I've really been very proud to be able to do a number of various roles, including chairing in the education space. I chaired, for example, a primary school in which my kids were in, which was also an excuse for me to be involved in what my kids were doing. But it was very informative for me because I chaired one of the best primary schools and looking at how governance works within the education space. And eventually I was also to chair the University of the Western Cape at a time when we were dealing with some very difficult issues on challenges that students had. We called it Fees Must Fall, and many others. Within the ILO, to be specific, I have had the privilege and really the opportunity of growing over the last 11, 12 years in various roles, one of them having been to chair the employers group in Torino at the Turin Center, which a lot of you will know. I have been very biased about that because of my love for education and employment creation. I was chairing the PFA, the Program Finance and Administration, as the spokesperson for that. And that for me was the one area I think that gave me the biggest insight into the ILO, because when we're involved with the program and budget, there is nothing you don't know. There is nothing you cannot ask about. There is nothing you cannot get into, because the entire budget of the ILO is structured in terms of its programs throughout the world. I also was able to be involved in leading a number of change areas within the ILO, specifically when we reviewed the standards environment to make sure that it is an updated, relevant, and robust environment in ensuring that we continue to be relevant. It continue to include and lead in the space of actually being able to, from a macro level, influence what happens at national level in terms of our 187 members that are part of the ILO. Within the Centenary Declaration itself, I had the privilege, enormous privilege, of being part of the negotiation, part of leading what it is that we were to have as content through social dialogue, what we had as in terms of an outcome, a document that everybody is proud of, a document that I always feel that the leadership of the world is very clear that in a COVID and post-COVID environment, it is that document that we're going to use. I think it is very important that in the same year in which we adopted the Centenary Declaration in 2019, we also adopted Convention 190. Convention 190, as most of you will know, is probably one of the most groundbreaking conventions in dealing with violence and harassment in the world of work. Violence and harassment during the COVID has also come out and shown its ugly face. Whether you want to be specific and say it was happening outside the world of work, I think you would find it tricky to do so, because as we all know, the world of work is now not clear as to where it is. At home, if you have violence in a home that initially was supposed to be divorced from the world of work, it is now violence within the world of work, because the world of work is also following us via Zoom or via Teams or via all these platforms that we use to be within the world of work. So I have been very privileged to be part of not only participating within social dialogue, not only being involved in what would change the way we look at the ILO going forward in the next 100 years, but actually leading that change, being involved in that change is what makes me in my view, the best candidate. The best candidate in terms of competence, the best candidate in terms of experience, the best candidate in terms of an appreciation of how the organization works in all its regions, which is the other part that I think people do not